Yeah.
Welcome back to the PoliToxic Podcast. I'm your host, Little Miss VRB,
And I'm Sari Beth Rosenberg.
and we're here to bring you the most toxic topics in the news cycle this week. Now, if you'll notice, we don't have microphones today. We're not doing heavy glam or anything, and we're also not going to be talking about multiple subjects. Today, we decided that we're going to stick to one thing.
One thing only. We are only going to talk about the Democratic Party's messaging dilemma, to put it lightly,
Yeah.
problem. And I can't think of something more toxic than that right now. And our podcast is called the PoliToxic Podcast. So let's get into it, Vanessa. What's going on with the Democratic messaging right now? Like, let's just kind of frame it.
Honestly, I'm feeling that there's just a lack thereof. We don't really have any messaging at this point. I feel like we're watching a lot of playing possum, not a lot of planning or strategy. And as someone who works in strategizing, I'm finding myself really frustrated. What about you?
Yeah, feeling the same way. Before I was a teacher, I worked in marketing and publicity, and I always joke that when if your first job is publicity, you always think like a publicist, and we have a major publicity problem. I'm going to start with what I think is, and I want to hear what you think of this. First of all, I'm so sick of being on the defensive. I'm so sick of them defining us. And you and I have a lot of people with a lot to say in our comments. And wherever they're getting their information from, whether they're Russian bots or real people, and I really, really hope you're Russian bots because y'all are crazy, they all have their messaging together. And it's wrong. It's lies. It also is disgusting towards women. That's a different podcast.
Right.
But they are on the offensive
They're
and
on the offensive and they have strategy.
they have strategy. And they have done an incredible job at defining us. And we have been on the defensive ever since. And they've been working on this for decades. And it's won them elections.
Yeah.
And I'm really dismayed by the fact that after all the stuff, and I know we can't really curse, but I want to curse all the that he's been doing, his favorability ratings should be far lower.
They should. But the problem is that they maintain the airwaves with a consistent messaging, whether that messaging is true or not, whether it's misogynistic or not, they
Yeah.
have control of the platforms and control of the air. There's multiple reasons why this is happening. And I find it really interesting that the Democrats, our party, were supposed to be the scholars. We're supposed to be,
Yeah.
the ones who are educated. And I feel like our leaders are not learning at all from Republicans. We can look at exactly what they do and have been doing, just like you said, for years, their messaging strategy, how they're posting on social media, why their, platforms of right-wing podcasters and influencers are so much more popular than ours. And
Right.
it's because they have a plan and they have capital, they have money. And so I'm really disappointed that we're at least not even looking at what they're doing and trying to come up with some sort of strategy because the only strategy I'm seeing is what we've been doing for years and years, which
Yeah.
is putting white young men front and center. We're seeing
Yes.
Gavin Newsom coming out with a Joe Rogan-esque podcast where he's breaking bread with fascists. And I just think
Literally.
it is so out of touch with what regular people in the party want to do and see. And I don't know how we change that. What do you think?
I agree. It's white men who are getting the views. It's white men who are getting the views because they're being promoted on every platform. And sure, some of them have great opinions. They have great things to say. They have great content, but I'm sick of it. There's so many more people who need to be heard from in this space, and they're not speaking for them. And even when
No.
they try to speak for them, we don't need them speaking for us. I don't need another white man talking about repro rights. I don't need another white man talking about the education system or tariffs, frankly. And it's not to say that we want all women now, but we need a seat at the table. And they're not giving it to us. And we're going to take it instead. But it's really hard to take it when I feel like the party is so obsessed with a certain small sector of social media personalities and kind of ignoring the rest of us. And we're not going to get a lot of views if you don't amplify us. And then you'll always have a reason to go with those other influencers. And no disrespect to them. Like, I hope if they watch this, I think your content's great. I just think that we need other voices because we are also being the ones who are being adversely affected and if at best and attacked and erased, literally. Like they just erased women's contributions to the military on the Arlington National Cemetery website. They are literally erasing us from the story of America. And of course, they're also erasing, literally took away Black Lives Matter, the words Black Lives Matter on Black Lives, what was it, Black Lives Matter Boulevard or whatever it was. They took they found a way to take that down real fast.
Yeah. I think something else that we need to touch on here about these white men that are being forced forward in political content creation, specifically on the left and progressive side. These are young men who are not oppressed in any way, shape, or form. They do not know struggle. They've never had to fight for a job or to get into a school. The majority of them look like they live really nice life. I can't speak.
Really
Really
nice
nice
lives.
lifestyles, and that is not relatable, at least for me as a woman in the
No.
content space or anybody who I think it's not the only voices that we need to be amplified right now, and yet we're seeing the same thing over and over again. And I'm gonna say it because I think it needs to be said. They're boring. They're boring. I'm sorry. Like I feel like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
most charismatic, the most entertaining people that I'm finding in content creation around politics are all women. Like
Yeah.
the ones that are making me laugh are women. The ones that are making me think are women. The ones that are making me donate to something or show up to something or inspire me to do something is women. I'm not feeling any of those things from any of these guy influencers. And so I'm really hoping that within at least the next few months, I mean, things are happening so quickly and we've already completely lost the messaging board. We've lost
Yeah.
already. So
Yeah.
we're climbing uphill to try and get back if we're even going to have a shot in the next election, and let alone that we don't have a plan yet. But I feel like we're fighting an uphill battle and I'm really hoping to see some change, at least on the strategy side or in the
Yeah.
back rooms of, what's going to get us out of this, and it's going to be inviting more women and people of
Mhm.
color and
Yes.
everything that is not what we're seeing at the table, in my personal opinion.
And in terms of messaging and content that's being created, I'm also going to say it. Yes, I understand that politicians are often seen as wonky and not relatable. And there needs to be a course correction, but not to the whole other side of the table where you're saying, hey, bestie Warren, hey, bestie Jeffries, right?
Right.
Like there needs, so I was so honored to be invited to the Hill on the Senate side. I was one of 10 or so creators for the first time invited into the Hart Building to interview senators for the day and evening of the speech, President Trump's joint address to Congress. And what a gruesome day. I mean, that speech was horrendous. We can talk about that another time.
Right.
And it was a really incredible experience. And I want to thank everyone in Cory Booker's office who made this happen. I want to thank Cory Booker for taking the lead here and getting his fellow senators to take a chance with social media and working with creators like me. And I thought a lot about how I was going to approach it because I felt a tremendous responsibility that day to get it right, especially to make the senators were, this was new to them, and I wanted them to have a good experience that day. So they invite us all back. And you're next, Vanessa. We need to get you in there too, because it's
Can't
just
wait.
such a great experience. And I know you do an amazing job speaking with all the senators. And my strategy was this. Listen, I was just going to be myself. I was going to be real and authentic, but I also was going to treat them with respect. They do work for us, but they are elected officials and they are experts here. They have such a wealth of knowledge about, what was good, what was going to happen when that speech was given. They knew they were there with the all the facts about how, like specifically how these policies are hurting their specific constituents. And so I wanted to interview them in a natural way, but with respect. And I wanted to strike a balance there. And that includes not calling them bestie. And but it also includes not being like, "Hello, sir. Thank you so much for your time." And I think that, I have experience interviewing people from the work I do with PBS NewsHour Classroom. And I also have experience of teaching kids, breaking things down for them. So I came to the table with that. And that is a lot to just say that there are a lot of creators like me, like you, who can do that. And I think that the American people understand that this is a very serious, dire time in our country. And it's not the time to be dancing with your favorite senator. It's not the time to be memifying things, right? Maybe, listen, maybe during a recess in the summer, but the day of the joint address was not the day to be parading around, right? And I know that I would rather spend a lot of time attacking Republicans, but we need to clean this up because our democracy is on the line.
Yep.
And
I
if,
want
yeah,
to add here, I had the privilege of watching a lot of you, some of the creators, I know them myself, but I watched all of the footage from that day. And I just want to say, I'm not just saying this because we're friends, we have a podcast together. You brought a level of professionalism that I have not seen in any of the circles that are going. I felt like I was watching a genuine journalist and news reporter, which I mean, you basically are. Like, no, maybe you're not on MSNBC, but I
no,
feel like you were asking questions and we're coming from a different place from a news reporter. One, because it's your background as a teacher, but two, just as an average citizen. And I just want to say, I think you did such an incredible job, as everyone did a good job, but you really brought
thank you.
something different to the table this time. And just like to echo what you were just saying, I think the American people are really looking for something different. They're having a really hard time with regular news media outlets right now, like MSNBC firing, some of our most trusted news journalists, people like Joy Reid and Katie Fang. We all saw what happened with CNN when it was purchased by a right-wing billionaire some years ago, and I think a lot of average folks are turning away from the news and they're tuning into people like us who are reporting on this every day and doing all of these things. And I think that the Democratic Party is kind of missing out, one, on a lot of free viewership and chances to reach people by working with creators like you and I. I mean, collectively together, I think we figured out before this call, we have more than 500,000 followers,
No,
just the two of
no,
us.
collectively we have a million.
Collectively, yeah, we have just about 1 million followers. And, if we're looking at marketing or messaging for the Democratic Party, if we were to look at this as a business, you want to be looking at return on investment. And I think Democrats really need to start taking a serious look at what creators and people like us have the opportunity to do because we are in a post-mainstream media landscape, right? Our boomer parents grew up on CNN watching it every single night, but that's not the case anymore. Nobody is really watching television anymore. Everything has gone to streaming. And I really think what we're going to see in the next couple of years is regular media is going to cease to exist. If you look at what Trump just did yesterday, canceling those two radio
Yeah,
stations, I'm going to
Voice of
say,
America, Voice of America
yeah,
is one
so
of them.
those
Yeah.
are outlets where people in other countries can hear from us about what
Yes.
is going on in their fascist countries, right? We're going to see mainstream media start to really diminish. That's going to be one of the first things I think this administration intends to do. And I think Democratic leaders need to get really serious about how they are going to reach their base. And I sincerely believe it is through people like you and I and all of these, small to huge creators on social media that are bringing this into their everyday language and what they're talking about with their viewers. And I really hope someone out there is going to listen to this podcast and maybe take some of our strategic advice because
Yeah.
I've seen what we're doing isn't working.
It's not working. And what fascists, one of the first things that fascists do is they break down the fourth estate, the media, right? But the cool thing about technology is that we are the new fourth estate. And I do not might claim myself to be a journalism. I very much respect the academy. I was not trained in journalism, but this is another thing I was talking about since the DNC was they were like traditional media was trying to pit it like traditional media versus content creators. My response, and I wrote a long thread about this, is that we need to be working together.
Yes.
Just as they want to divide Americans against each other so that the billionaires can have their way, they're also trying to divide those of us who are trying to responsibly give out information to people, right? And so, you know, we need, if they're gonna make it so that it's harder for people to get the really incredible journalism that people were doing on MSNBC who got kicked off, we need to now collaborate, right? A lot of people don't read the New York Times. So like I'm happy to like go through the article and get the people scrolling through to read. We do that all the time. Like I'm probably going to do that tonight about the Alien Enemies Act, even though I should be grading work, right? We need to collaborate because and I think that's the big thing. It's like this fascist regime is working overtime
Yep.
to take down our democracy.
And winning and
And they're
winning.
doing a great job at it.
Exactly.
And we are sitting back and having infighting and just, knocking social media, knocking this, knocking that. And
Jealousy and ego is coming in between a lot of things. And I just want to touch on something that you were just saying about journalists. No,
yeah,
we aren't journalists,
no,
right? But journalists are not content creators. And so while journalists may be a journalist, they can learn from us about social messaging and getting something to spread like wildfire. Because I'm going to tell you right now, both of us have way more views than anyone who is on a major news network, minus Joy Reid and I'm going to say Rachel Maddow. They've got the views and they've got the following, but it's
yeah,
because Joy has been on TikTok for like
yep,
a couple of years now. She did the work. She understands that differentiation between the two. And so I think if like as an entire team, we need to be strategizing because we are competing with TPUSA. We're
yeah,
competing with an entire network that is funded. They have editors, they have everything they need to be successful to create a message going forward. And I'm just gonna, I think, patiently sit back and wait for the Democratic Party to catch up on this because
yeah,
we're losing. And um, the social tone online I completely understand with where people are. They feel like they're not being fought for. They feel like they want a plan and someone to follow, and we want to know what's going on. And so I'm really hoping that our podcast today reaches some people who can take this conversation because we are the streets.
yeah.
You
We
know,
are the
we're
streets.
hearing straight from the streets, which is the internet now. And I really hope someone listens to this episode and at least takes something away from it positive because we have to do something now,
Me too. Yeah.
before it's getting too late.
And
And I
and I
have
feel
no
like,
good.
I'm sure there was some kind of paper spread around elected to like use a mini mic, be cash, sit on the back of a cab. But like, here's the thing. Sure, if it works for you. I'm going to use an analogy, which is like, I went to master's in teacher school. Like, what is it? I got my master's in teaching. I don't even, it's been a long day. And you can't teach someone how to be a good teacher without you give them the toolbox and then you tell them to do what works for them. For one teacher, writing it on the board while explaining it and doing another activity might work, whereas another teacher doesn't work for them. They might like doing more like gamification of learning.
Right.
And so I think that what's happening is that instead of people going, well, me in the back of a cab with a mini mic doesn't really work for me. I'm this type of senator, and like, I can just do it a more natural way. It ends up coming across as inauthentic, and it ends up coming across as even worse as if they didn't do it, right? And I think that's so important. And I think that like, that's another thing that needs to be discussed. Like having a mini mic isn't going to necessarily make you relatable to
No,
Joe down the
not going to
block.
make your videos viral. It's all based upon authenticity and who you are. This isn't a carbon copy. Do this, and it's gonna move. It has to come from an authentic place.
Yeah.
And
Doing dances, choosing your fighter. Like it's just,
I understand trying to work with trends,
yes.
but the tone and the timing, I think, was not appropriate. I
Nope.
think we should have been a little bit more serious that day. But something like that sticks in the memories of people for a while. And so, they have the money of they have the endless war chest of money to put
Uh-huh.
towards marketing and, you know, what back in the old days we would call print, like
Yeah.
they have endless dollars to market. It should be really going towards social media, their teams and strategies and things like that. And if anybody needs any direction, give us a call.
Yeah, we know, because unfortunately for you, we scroll on TikTok all day. We know what's cringe. We know what's trending. We know what works. I mean, just watch. I mean, I'm gonna give a shout out to Vanessa. She's just like on the forefront and finding like the dopest, most cool sounds that work and using them in a clever way and in an original way, right? Because, choose your fighter, no offense, that was like cool 2 years ago. And like the only reason you would use it is if you were doing some kind of retro thing and it was trending. That's not trending now. It's not
Yeah.
cool now.
Well,
You know,
and we weren't fighting anything.
no.
Everyone sat there. It was like
It was like, what
just
fighter?
like is the complete opposite of like actually what we're doing. Like, and people want to see the Democrats fighting. They want to see them
Yes.
on the offense. They want to see them talking ish. They want to see them the same way that I think all of us are coming forward, which is like another reason why I think people are so attracted to content creators like us, is because we're saying the things that they aren't saying.
We're
We're
saying it.
demanding the things that nobody is demanding. We're going out there on the limb, and I think we're echoing the things that they are feeling. And so the Democrats should start listening more.
And a final point there, and then we're gonna wrap up, is we see our comments. I ignore a lot of the mean ones, so if you think that you're getting to me, you're not. But we have a large base, a large community that we've collectively created on our respective platforms, and we are seeing in real time how people feel. And apparently some Democrats on Friday in the Senate were not on these streets like we were. And I could have told them that everyone in my comments, everyone everywhere was not down with this CR.
No.
So, little things like that are really big. And so it's kind of like top down and bottom up. We are both creating the content and then interacting with our followers and then creating content that they want to see, creating messaging that they want to see. And one of my most popular posts since the election just came from the heart, and it was just me writing that if you voted for Trump, we can't be friends, and this is why. And so many people said to me, "Oh my God, I wish I could have posted that, but I can't. I just, X, Y, and Z." But thank you. And that's what people want right now. They don't
Yep.
want the like, choose your fighter or like, they want someone to be like, no, this is why Trump is a threat. You're not going crazy. What you feel is real. We all feel this. And
Yep.
that is what's going to get people to the voting booth. That's going to get people to the town halls. That's going to get people to make phone calls so we can win those two House races on April 1st in Florida. That is you have to have a conversation. And a long time ago we didn't have social media, so it was much more difficult for electeds to do that. And we're doing this for free for you, but like eventually we need to be paid. But like we are getting free polling. We're getting
Yeah.
free feedback every day. So it just behooves them to work with us. And that's why, again, shout out to Cory Booker's office, Senator Booker. He understands that. He's
Gets it.
an OG. He's an OG with social media. Like he was
He
on
understands the
Facebook,
assignment.
he was on Facebook, he was on Twitter long before everyone else. And
Yep.
I hope his fellow senators start listening to him. And I think
Yep.
they are.
He understands the assignment. I
Yeah.
think, to kind of like finish off your thought, which was amazing, like everything that you just said, is we have these conversations in the back room a lot about how we're going to attract new people and how we're going to reach audiences that aren't our regular audience, our Democratic echo chamber. How are we going to reach people that aren't? And when you were just saying that, I kind of had this thought. By us saying these things to them and saying that we share and their worry about this and their fear about this and saying all the things that they feel, I think that might make more people brave to come forward and say, you know what, she's right or they're right. I don't agree with this. You know what? I'm going to change this or I'm going to do something different or I'm going to get involved because they're going to relate on a human level, not
Yes.
on a Democratic Republican level, on a I might not totally, get on with this person, but she just said something that I deeply resonate with. And maybe that will inspire more people to get involved. And maybe that's how we grow the new audiences is
I
by
love
just
that.
being authentically human and
Yeah,
trying to them.
we've lost our humanity. That's what I think. That's kind of resonate. That like echoes in my head all day. Have we lost our humanity? Have we lost our empathy? That so many people are okay with these just inhumane,
Yeah.
despicable actions. And yeah, maybe we just maybe it, if people don't most people aren't really political anyway, but I want to think that more people have humanity than seem to right now. And maybe it is just simply that. So that's actually not toxic. So go us.
We
That was
li-
not
we left off on a positive note
what?
for the first
Who
time
are
ever. I
we?
think
Who are we?
better stop this. We're gonna get a reputation.
Yeah,
We can't.
Vanessa, like what do we do? Okay, no. Everybody sucks.
Yeah.
We hate you all. No, no, but we see we have hearts. We have hearts after all.
Hurts. And if anything, if any of the work we're doing, I just hope it provokes thought. I hope
Yeah.
people no matter if they agree with what we're trying to say here or not, in terms of any of it, in terms of how our leaders are acting, what content creation should be, what the media should be, whether they agree with us or not, I genuinely hope that our conversations here provoke thought. And we love to hear your guys' feedback. So if you have any questions for us, please feel free to drop them in the comments. You can find us on all social media platforms right now. But we are going to be continuing to film every week, regardless of the weather or the fascist situation. And we're so excited to still be here together
Yeah.
doing this. And
It's an honor and it's a privilege. I love working side by side you, Vanessa, and I love this community we've created. Share our podcast. We're gonna post. We're also on Substack now. You might be watching this on Substack. So
yes.
hello to our new Substack page and YouTube and everywhere. Vanessa, where else can people follow you?
You guys can find me on all platforms at Little Miss VRB.
And you can find me everywhere. I'm Sari Beth Rose, but I'm just Sari on Blue Sky. Because why not? Mixing it up. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back next week with more toxic topics that are grabbing the headlines and grabbing our minds. So have a great night, everyone.